lose trust in their institution. When reports are made by students to these individuals, it is expected that they will be taken care of in a timely manner, not weeks or months after the fact. If a complaint submitted to a dean takes 6 weeks to reach the school board, the school did not immediately act on it. School should be a safe place for all, and students ought not to feel violated or fearful of teachers and administrators. School and workplaces should be places conducive to learning and productivity. When the issue of sexual harassment is not effectively dealt with in institutions, it creates a hostile and toxic environment that affects mental health, work ethic, and academic performance. There should be a clear-cut and easily accessible policy for students regarding sexual harassment in their institution and for complaint procedures. The current sexual harassment policy at the Edna Manley College is not easily accessible to students, and it is not laid out in the student handbook. The policy states that if one believes that they have been sexually harassed, they should bring this to the attention of any member of the Sexual Harassment Advisory Board. Students are not made aware of who exactly comprises this board and are therefore unaware of who to submit complaints to or how they will be dealt with. Counseling ought to be emphasized for the well-being of students who have been sexually harassed at the institution, as outlined by the sexual harassment policy as an integral part of complaint procedures. Without the proper policies in place and enforced, predators are able to prey on victims each and every year. The allegations of sexual misconduct against lecturers at the college is not unique to this institution. However, it is a long-standing issue that needs to be addressed and highlights the necessity of the sexual harassment bill being passed imminently. The bill was tabled yet again yesterday by the Honorable Olivia Grange. With this bill passed, victims of sexual harassment would be more empowered to make reports, as a legal remedy would be available for them. Sexual harassment in Jamaica ought to be frowned upon. It is possible to change what is viewed as being the norm in society by implementing the necessary laws to protect individuals. The policy of schools should be in accordance with the law. An example of this is the Title 11 United States law. In the United States, students from preschool to graduate school are protected under the Education Amendment of 1972 federal law, which does not permit sexual discrimination in educational institutions, programs, or activities that receive financial assistance from the state. This law prohibits sexual harassment as well as gender-based and sexual violence. Schools must have policies against sexual discrimination, sexual harassment in particular, and at least one employee is required to make sure this is enforced. There should be a similar law in place for Jamaican students when it comes to sexual harassment. Schools must respond quickly to complaints of sexual harassment and must provide counseling for victims of harassment, as well as assistance academically if a student's performance has suffered because of sexual harassment at the institution. It is important to note that me speaking today is simply a call for action to solve the issue of sexual harassment in institutions and to highlight the issue that complaints of sexual harassment have been improperly dealt with. I believe that by bringing these matters to light, school will be a safer place for all who attend. Thank you. Members, I think on behalf of the entire committee, I think that I am conveying our sentiments that we want to commend Ms. Blair on her bravery in coming forward and bringing and highlighting these issues. we have all agreed that we feel that, as was pointed out here, Minister Grange has tabled a sexual harassment bill, and it has been referred to a joint select. We feel that the further discussion and more in-depth can take place there, but certainly within our remit, we as a committee are seized of the importance of dealing with this matter, and we think it's important that it has been brought to public attention in this way, and that we will be making our recommendations as we go forward to support moves to strengthen the systems and procedures in place that govern this in all our government institutions. So and as I said before, I speak on behalf of a united and a united Public Administration and Appropriations Committee. We have come together on this matter and all agree on the way forward. I speak for all of you. All right, so with that, are there any last comments before we move on to the next matter at hand?
Chair, just, if we could also get a report from the institution through the Ministry of Education on, since this has been an issue, if any changes have been made in the policies that going forward in protecting students, as was enunciated in that by Janelle.
Right, just on that point, Member Phillips, I think even wider than that. I think that,
or if there's a policy through the Ministry of Education for all tertiary institutions and schools, not only tertiary but educational institutions.
What I would say, Member Daly made the point. She sits on the Joint Select. I don't know if other members do, but I don't think we need to do the work twice. But certainly, if the Joint Select Committee is going to not just look at the bill, but there needs to be somewhere where the actual implementation of the policy in the institutions, and the bill really, the Joint Select normally looks at the bill, but ours are recommendations as to the effectiveness of administration. So we can't abdicate our role. So I think what we can do is seek to get some information and determine the way forward. But certainly this is not something, a ball that we can afford to drop. All right, Member.
Chairman, I just would like for us to be clearly placed on record our appreciation to the ladies who came today and made the presentation with such great composure and confidence.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. All right, members, we have the members. We have the Ministry of Industry, Agriculture and Fisheries with respect to the RADA roads are here, so we would move on to the next item.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, earlier on before we took the break, Member Phillips had raised some questions for which we'll be seeking answers at CMU. I would also, I'm curious about one of the questions he asked, for which I'd love some further clarification. This Devon McQueen that he made reference to, that is hired by the CMU. I'd love to find out if he's employed anywhere else in the government service, at any other high school, etc. Because I think somewhere it was alluded that he was employed at Jamaica College also. So I want that to be verified.
Okay.
While he was contracted at CMU in addition.
All right. Okay, so could we call?
Just to say more specifically, I think he was employed as a driver at JC for the former minister.
Okay. All right. Well, so it's an addendum to the questions.
Questions he had posed
Yes.
earlier on. Just for further clarification.
Oh, you printed off the roles? You printed off you have a copy of the list?
Oh, their names?
No, the list of roles.
Oh, yes, I sent you a copy yesterday.
By email.
No, hard copy.
I wasn't in Parliament.
This is the final list.
All right. Welcome to the PAAC. Mr. Spence, you are leading the. Pardon? You can use the mic. Yes. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. What I'm going to do is ask you to introduce your team, and then I don't think that this will be a particularly long meeting. I think there are just some issues of clarification that we would like. So I would say to you, introduce the team, and then you can start by, if there are any remarks you want to make, and then I'll certainly ask a few questions and turn it over to the team.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It is the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries' pleasure to be here this morning to share with the PAC our schedule for the National Farm Road Rehabilitation Program. And the team that is with me this morning comprises senior officials from the ministry. To my immediate left is Mr. Peter Thompson, the CEO of RADA. To his left is Ms. Lita Geddes, our director in the Project Monitoring Division. And Mr. Gaynor is sitting next to her, and he's the accountant, financial controller in RADA. And in the back there, in Mr. Coley, our director for planning. And beside Mr. Coley, to Mr. Coley's left, is Mr. Pendergrass, and he's Pendergrass, and he's the engineer in RADA. We are happy to be here to share, and so my brief opening comments would speak to the fact that in 2017-18, in keeping with the government of Jamaica economic growth strategy, Cabinet approved the implementation of the Farm Road Rehabilitation Program. This program, of course, is intended to increase agricultural sector contribution to GDP through expansion in production and export activities. Under the program, the targeted expected outcome is increase in market access for the farmers, increase in domestic crop and livestock production, and of course, improvement in the farm income for the household. For the medium term, the program is expected to benefit an estimated 20,000 farmers directly island-wide, in addition to the expected increase in agriculture production for both local and export. As of April 2019, the ministry road program being executed through rather targeted and rehabilitated 158 farm roads in 12 parishes at an expenditure of 1.1 billion for the current period 2019-20. We are targeting 88 farm roads, approximately 43, just over 43 kilometers, and in 13 parishes with an approved budget of some 752 million. With that in mind, as the questions are asked, I could elucidate on the process and the different methodologies that are involved and clarify with the team whatever questions are asked. Thank you.
All right. The one question, we had gotten a document earlier. We're to disregard that document? We had gotten a first document,
Yes.
which had given some things. Is that, in other words, that document, this is the final and only?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, members, are there any? I think members, why it's important. This, once it comes to us, it will be released. The process is that under the program, which comes in the yellow book or estimates of expenditure, we look at how the program is going to be administered. So once we get this will be circulated in our report to the Parliament. It is important because this is a program in which members of Parliament work very closely with their other offices to ensure that they can maximize the program. So if there are any real concerns, we'll bring them up. If not, we can release. I had told the you know, when I told them earlier that we were being delayed, you know, they were saying that they wouldn't have minded going away and coming back later. But I told them that I feel we can get through this rather quickly today. So I don't know if there are any issues with this. So this is the final and only document. You have roads in South St. Catherine?
Mr. Chairman.
No,
Mr. Chairman.
To the fisherman's
Mr. Chairman, I think I need some protection from the chairman, you know.
I'm going to assign Mr. Clark. I'm going to assign Mr. Clark and Mr. Campbell to protect you from me.
Mr. Chairman, contrary to what some, including yourself, might believe, the constituency I represent of South St. Catherine do have a farming district. It's called the Bernard Lodge farming area, which is one of the more suitable areas for agricultural activity in the St. Catherine Plains. I heard the opening remarks from the PS about the farm roads, but I was just curious. I saw none on there for South St. Catherine, so you know that jumped out on my. However, I must hasten to say that there was some roads that were done in the last financial year,
Very beneficial.
for which I'm very, very grateful. However, Mr. Prendergast, who is here, will attest that the allocation for that road was not adequate for that part that was done to be fully effective. And the understanding to which I also wrote to the Minister of Agriculture on is that in this financial year, and given that that period the funds would have been exhausted, and with the best intention that wouldn't be necessarily able to attend to, but in this financial year, they would seem to bring usefulness to the expenditure already made by completing that critical portion of it. You know, it's like fixing a road to get over there, and you fix this part and you can't cross the other part. What's the point in paving the part before? So to bring value to what has been done, that they would. So on that basis, I am appealing to the permanent secretary and his secretary and his team to give consideration. to that.
What I will say to members, and just adding to what you have just said, the program has been very beneficial to certainly the farmers in my constituency. It has been very helpful, and of note, towards the end of the financial year, where there have been surpluses in the secondary, in the supplementary estimates, they have put increased amounts. So I think all of us, it's important for us to ensure that they at least know what the priorities are, along with the RAD officers, to see that if those are coming, the process has initiated.
I just want to say, just for overall effectiveness, I use my case as a reference because I happen to have been there on the site with the officers when they were making the evaluation. It was clear to them too. So my suggestion is that in administering the program, generally, that you make allocation that can bring usefulness to whatever you spend. Because I see it often all the time. Sometimes some drains, you clean one portion of the drain and the portion remaining, the water block up is only going to shift from one point to the other, but it's not allowing the water to run all the way through. What's the point in making that expenditure if there's no value to what is spent? So I just want to suggest that when in evaluating each piece of road, make sure that at the end of that expenditure, it makes a difference.
All right, members, I'm going to have the members who want to just make their points, if they're not, let them all just, and then let them wrap up, because do remember we have the Ministry of Labor outside as well as others. So, Member Phillips?
Yeah. Chair, I'm happy to see the list that is now in front
the
of
final.
us. That I would say good sense has prevailed. Eh? But I just want to just deviate a little bit, Chair, because I know the Minister of, or one of the Ministers of Agriculture presented yesterday. But with the drought situation in many of the parishes, and I can speak specifically of Manchester, time past used to do a tank program to assist some of the farmers, and we as members of parliament used to help to fill those tanks to keep them. Is that program going to continue? Because the drought this year started much earlier. I was seeing it in my constituency. The Irish potato crop is being affected, and there are other crops that are being affected. Will a program like that also follow? But also, if you're going to do one like that, will the farmers be assisted with drip irrigation also, or can you elaborate?
In other words, what assistance
what
will they get in given that, I think at the end of it, given that there is a drought now, what is it that the ministry is putting in place as sort of production incentives?
I just want to make the point, because when you give us the assistance in seed and fertilizer now, don't make no sense, because they can't plant it anyway. So, you know, so that we're at this point, anything towards the mitigation, the water side of it. Can I answer?
All right. Thanks very much. The ministry has built into its budget the drought mitigation component, and rather executes that component. As we speak, that component is in effect. So already in some areas we're trucking water and providing tanks. I think procurement is underway to secure further support. In terms of the monies committed so far, we have committed over 30 million. Even within the corridors of Parliament, there was discussion a while ago, and I called the financial controller to indicate that there's need for disbursement of a further 50 million based on the feedback that we're getting. So an analysis was done, and the critical areas are being targeted. And as the situation changes, the analysis is being done. So I'll ask Mr. Thompson to speak to the specific activities, but that's what is the situation with the ministry.
Before Mr. Thompson says that, what I would ask you to do is please give us a breakdown of where that expenditure has taken place and the proposed expenditure.
And why that is critical? Because over the last 2 years, I can say, when there is any mitigation, I can speak about my parish. As a member of parliament, I've never been engaged by the parish office. We have heard that tanks are there, and my farmers will come to me and say, talk to your MP. But I've never been notified by my parish office that that the member of parliament, they're seeking the assistance of the member of parliament. You know, and as ones just like the extension officers, because remember, you know, I always say it here, you have more farmers and extension officers that you have out there. And we can help because we are on the road on a daily basis.
Definitely.
Yeah?
All right. Members, I don't know, I just want a procedure. You want us to deal with this on the tank issue, and then the other members on the drought, and then the members afterwards will just, because you have specific to this, your questions are specific to this. Okay, let me just, yes, Mr. Thompson.
Yes, Chairman, morning again, members. As it relates to the current drought situation out there, we have done some preliminaries, and of course I have written to all the parish managers out there to engage their members of parliament when we have programs to benefit farmers out there, including the road program that we're currently discussing. So I'm not sure where the breakdown took place, but all of them have been written to. In terms of specifics, we have been doing some trucking of waters in the parishes, and I can speak to St. Anne, St. Mary, South St. Elizabeth, and South Manchester. We are targeting farmers. And Manchester is one of the most productive parishes in Jamaica, either one or two between Manchester and St. Elizabeth. So it's very critical that we assist those farmers. And I will do some investigations to find out why you are not aware of activities taking place in your parish.
Mr. Thompson says over 2 years now,
Yes,
I have not been engaged at all.
So that is going to change. We are ensuring that this happens. But part of our program will include black tanks and irrigation hose, and we are looking at more sustainable supply of water. So we will be looking at earthen ponds where they can be established. Where you have craters in the ground, we will be targeting those, focusing on production areas. We believe that if you buy black tanks, you still need water to fill them.
All right.
Sir, Chair, and let me tell you why it's disturbing. I have approached him about earth tank. Jamaica drip irrigation, so they would give us the liners free of cost. Yeah?
Work on that.
And nothing. 2 years now, nothing.
All right. Just a matter, the minister spoke in Parliament. Was there any discussion on productivity and any programs now? Or?
It was mentioned, I think, Pierce, that there would be an amount for the member of Parliament towards production incentive. But the truth be told, Chair, is that when you are in a drought, you can't give a farmer seed and fertilizer.
Yeah. No, but so, that's no. Just hear me out a second.
But
point I'm making, point I'm making is what, when you say productivity, what entails in that. In other words, if you determine that some black tanks and other things are the priority now, along with your rather extension officers, is that permitted under the production? Yes?
Yeah, yes. Well, let me just be clear in terms of what was announced in the minister's speech yesterday. A total, well, there's 200 for immediate direct disbursement, some 15 million towards just drought mitigation, not
Hold
the
on.
overall production
Hold on.
incentive.
Wait a second.
Broken?
Hold on. No, go back to your figure. You said 200 and then 15. I wasn't. What? No, go back. Okay, so 200 is the total.
No.
All right,
200 was a mistake. I was just coming
Oh.
back to the
Yeah, you notice how
So,
quickly.
50,
You notice
that's why I
how
drop
quickly I latched on.
in the minister's speech.
Yes.
15 million for direct distribution across the most seriously affected parishes: Manchester, St. Elizabeth, St. Catherine, St. Anne. It's 15 million direct intervention. That could be converted into the trucking of water and the black tanks immediately. Separate and apart from that, each member of parliament in the urban areas is getting something like $250,000 right away, and for the rural areas, I think it's 350,000 or 300,000. That is
To do what?
that is to help with whatever trucking and relief that they are aware of in some immediate areas.
So you're
Apart
saying,
from that,
so
apart
you're
from that.
saying that for the, and I will warn you that there is a whole swath of rural members
Yes.
of parliament
Yes.
here who are starting to get very agitated. Are you saying that for them, it's $300,000 is
As
the
an
production?
initial tranche.
With all due respect, though, you see, 300,000 can't even last me a day.
I know.
No,
I tell you.
All right.
No.
And
what I'm making the point, yeah. All right, go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I indicated earlier that RADA continues the assessment, and the point about engaging the Member of Parliament is critical, because in conjunction with the Members of Parliament, we are ready to secure the disbursement another 50 million towards drought mitigation. This process will continue based on the situation that we see arises. That's separate and apart from production incentive in terms of input support activities.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, but it doesn't sound to me that one thing is a drought, and we've got to deal with that. But there's a standard process where we are supporting our farmers, and I get the impression that that has been cut back seriously. No, the numbers you're telling me, well, all the members are here. I remember Campbell, well, I don't know if you'd get anything out of the St. Catherine tranche, but certainly member Dunn and you know, others. So I'm just saying, is it that has been cut back, or you're expecting some more?
I am not sure of the question.
The normal production incentives for farmers. That happens mostly in the rural areas across the country. There's a process. I'm just saying we have not heard about that. What we're hearing about is a drought mitigation program.
No, well, the normal production incentive support, it's still intact. And that is RADA's activity to work through with the members of parliament. That has not been affected. What has confronted us is the immediate drought situation, so we are responding to that.
Okay.
But the programs that have been presented by RADA for the production incentive, that is underway. And so if the members of parliament have not seen it yet, in short order, they will be contacted accordingly.
With all due respect. With all due respect. And I say I'm sorry for the leadership of RADA, because one thing is being said, and it's a different thing out in the field. Believe me, right? When you talk about production, I remember when I came into this house, at least once or twice a year we used to get a letter from the minister for $500,000 to assist in production incentives. I spend at least 2 million out of my own CDF towards production incentive. Right? No, this is separate. I have not gotten a letter like that. I see how many thousand bags of Irish potato come to Northwest, come to Manchester. And I was on fertilizer, and as a member of parliament, I have not been called to say any assisting rather to get production up. Right now, potato farmers, them knocking them knees. Yeah? Knocking them knees. One, because of the drought. And two, I had to say to one of the suppliers, I said, come into the area, because RADA is being blamed for buying substandard seeds. Yeah? So when you talk about members of parliaments being engaged, nothing like that happening to some of us, especially those on the opposing side. Believe me.
All right, no.
Believe me, man.
No, all right, members.
I don't know about that.
Hold on, no. Let me, Member Stewart.
Chairman, thank you very kindly. I want to join colleagues with my fellow member of parliament, Phillips here, because we seem to have suffered long and hard. South Manchester, my constituency, is a farming community. And I think Sir Thompson knows, Sir Spence, whom I work with over the years, would have known. And we have seen where fertilizers have come into Mandeville at the storehouse there. Seeds, I have sent in names, I've spoken to the managers there, and not even one of those persons have been called in. And I'm saying that there is something that is happening there which needs to be corrected, where someone seems to be usurping the powers of the authority of the elected representative, going around us and doing what they feel that is to be done. And that cannot continue at all. And I'm asking the PS and Mr. Thompson in particular to see that that is corrected. I am happy to know that good sense has prevailed as relates to the roads, because there are some corrections here, and we should not be fighting and wrangling when these things are done. We should be contacted. We should be out there in the field with the representatives and to do the selection of the roads. We should not be hearing that this road has been allocated and we don't know. I have seen here, Chairman, on another document where in Manchester, 21 roads were allocated to the JLP and 32 roads, I'm referring to Manchester here. I don't know about those 32 roads. Who got any of those roads? How many came to South Manchester? Where are they? And that cannot continue at all, Chairman. We need transparency. We need to look, we need to have some level of transparency. We need to be consulted as elected representatives going forward whenever these things are done. And we are appealing to the PS and the directors there for us to have some consultation, some dialogue with the elected representatives, rather than having persons going around. We only hear when they come into the area that this is going to be done. It cannot be at all. My final question, Chairman, has to do with is there a timeline? When can we expect to start getting some of these seeds, some of these assistance for our farmers as they look forward to preparation in their respective communities?
Member Stewart, through your chairman, we are on the ground doing our assessments now. And once your farmers are registered with RADA and the inputs are ready, you will be notified. As a matter of fact, as I said, I just want to remind our parish managers out there that they must consult with their members of parliament when programs are in effect running. So as we speak, procurement is in train for some of these inputs. So we'll let you know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the Prime Minister and the Minister for embarking on this road program, because it's very, very important. One of my concerns, though, Chairman, is that, take for instance the Southeast St. Mary, we have Long Road and Camberwell. These two areas are specifically for farming, but yet still we have roads there that are classified as NWA roads and maybe will never be repaired by NWA. My question is, how can we look at these productive farming areas and look at how do we classify or reclassify those roads? Because Longwood in particular has a lot of mangoes, and mangoes are emphasis now. Camberwell also have mangoes, cocoa planting, and yes, still those roads are in deplorable condition, but those are just farming district. So are we looking at how we reclassify some of these roads to deal with the productive enterprises that exist in these road areas?
No.
Yes, Dr. Dunn, it's something that we have been looking at, and we are doing some re-evaluation of that, because some of the more genuine farm roads are what is termed parish council roads. So we are going to be looking at that in a serious way.
No. The parish council is fine, but I'm talking about roads that are classified as NWA roads.
Same thing. Yeah, well, we look at those. We do our evaluation, because let me tell you something. If you see an off-road and you fix the off-road and then the main road leading into there is so much deplorable, then it makes no sense. Yeah. So we'll look at that.
No, I remember.
Thank you,
Wow.
Chairman. I will start on that last point I made with the parish council versus the farm roads. I'm not sure if you're clarifying now that if we're making recommendations, it can be a parish council road, because before I was of the understanding, and what I heard from RADA was that the only roads we can submit are the ones that are actually on the listing for RADA as farm roads. But what I'm seeing on this document now is that there's a column that you either tick if it's a parish council road or a farm road. And the ones that are received on this list for Central Westmoreland is actually ticked that these are parish council roads. Understanding though that even though you have parish council roads that, as I rightfully said just now, are actually roads that the farmers use extensively. So I just want to clarify that point, first of all, because as I said, the understanding had initially that even though parish council roads are used extensively by farmers, the ones we could have recommended were the actual ones that were on RADA's list as farm roads. So I want to ask if you are now telling me that moving forward, we can actually recommend parish council roads that we know are used extensively by farmers. So even though it's not on RADA's record as a farm road, it is there as a parish council road. And if that is so, if RADA now needs to update their particular system to include some of these parish council roads as actual farm roads. I want to clarify that first of all.
Member Vaz, if I may, I'm going to re-engage you. Just 1 second. Members, we're having a little issue. It is now 1 o'clock. We had invited the Ministry of Labor. There is a meeting, I understand, at 2 o'clock of the Data Protection Subcommittee or a joint selector, but I do not believe that we are going to be able to start labor in any meaningful way, and I don't want to keep them there if we are not. So I'd like your permission to allow them to go off and allow me the latitude to speak to labor and local government to see how we proceed next week. All right? So we would ask, you could inform the clerk to do that. Secondly, let me just take the opportunity. We have with us the students and teacher from the St. George's Girls' School. So members, could you please welcome them to the Parliament? All right, now back to the substantive matter. Member Vaz, let me just say something to you. This is a point that I think all of us as members of Parliament, it's something we need to engage. The substantive point you're making is whether or not the policy of RADA, is it sort of a road that is designated as a farm road, or with the understanding that many of the roads that are there are parish council roads that lead to the farming communities, and that the parish council really has not had the funding necessary. So the question I would say to you is, I think you're rightly asking them what's the policy. No, but I would say to my members here that maybe the recommendation needs to be that this program has to be extended. In other words, the use of the word farm road are for roads that would be beneficial to farmers rather than one with a specific designation. So I think, members, it's something that we need to determine whether we feel that's a worthwhile recommendation, if necessary, or whether or not they're already at that position so that you can broaden your scope of recommendations going forward. So with that, Mr. Thompson, I turn you back over, member of ours. Or Mr. Smith.
Yeah, before Mr. Thompson proceed to say what the policy really is a focus on farm roads. We want to be careful because the funds that are allocated targeting expenditure for farm roads, we are expecting to cover a certain amount. The quality of repairs that you require for the parish council road is really of a higher standard, and often if we tend to take on those, we might run into some problem in terms of, so I would think that the ministry would seek some guidance, as you have indicated, Mr. Chair, as to if a policy position would need to be presented accordingly.
What I was really saying, though, is that part of that is a recommendation of our committee would also be involved in that. But the point I was making is that some of the roads that are being recommended are, the term farm road is a very broad term, and I'm just making the point, a lot of these roads that are being fixed, some of the roads that are most beneficial to farmers may have a different designation, but there's no doubt they're farm roads. So the point I'm making is that your officers rightly must say that yes, this road is a farm road with the intention of it being of great importance to the production of agriculture. However, on the map, sometimes these roads come under different designations. It makes no sense if member Clark or a member of ours have a road with farmers and there's no money, and it is said to be parish council, and you having farm roads and an important farming district cannot be repaired. It doesn't make logical sense. So I'm just saying we're going to have to determine how we move forward with that. Are you?
No, I'm not finished. As I said, the reason why I asked the question is because in the past, in recommending the roads, I've heard, no, this road is not a farm road, which means I can't recommend it. So seeing a document now showing parish council roads right across, not only in Central Westmoreland, but right across the document, that's why I wanted to find out if the policy has shifted, why we have now chosen to fix parish council roads, which of course we know they lead to farms that farmers use, so I don't have a problem with that. But I also want to know if that is where we are with regards to moving forward. Will we be under the farm road program now fixing parish council roads? Well, you're saying no, but so this list then is not. Explain, please, how this list would come into play if the answer to that question is no.
My understanding, though, listening to the minister yesterday.
Yeah, I think on the same point. Yes,
listening to the minister yesterday, he said that once a road is being submitted, whether through the elected representative or through the groups, the personnel from RADA will go and do an evaluation. And that is what will determine. So it is not determined by whether it is a parish council, NWA, or farm road. If the officer from RADA goes and can be certain that this road really links the farming community,
then it will be approved. That's my understanding of what the minister said yesterday. And that's my experience in the past.
Well, what Frank
Because
is asking
I
is what I'm asking too. 'Cause what I'm asking is that
Right.
I just want to know if the road is used by farmers and it is a parish council road, if it's a road that can be recommended,
Yeah, that's
or
my-
is it that
That's my experience.
the original thing that I used to be told, that the only roads that can be recommended are the ones that are listed by RADA as farm roads? I want to know, as Frank rightfully said, the minister said yesterday, that as long as you recommend a road, whether from the councillor, the MP, or from the farmers group, the extension officers would go out and assess the situation and then determine if it can be recommended. So is that where we are as a policy position now?
Yes.
So I just want a direct answer to that question before I go to my follow-up question.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, before the officer answer, may I?
Yes.
And the reason for that, Mr. Chairman, is that they have been using a yardstick since time. The fact of the matter is we cannot go beyond the fact that, yes, you have some parish council road just the same. But let's take, for example, Paul Island, where it sits at the back of everything, Mr. Chairman.
And
Yet it is one of the biggest farming communities, so to speak, where sugar is concerned. Are you going to say to me that the road leading from Grangeville to Paul Island, which is a main road, parish council road, you're not going to fix it in the condition that it is in today, but yet you're going to drive over it and go into Paul Island, sir, and to do a road and bring it up to that lovely Barber Green looking road. So how, when the produce is harvested and is ready to be taken out to Froome or out to Grangeville, how do you get past Paul Island to Grangeville? And I'm saying, I understand what my two colleagues are saying. Allow the assessment to be done after recommending. Allow the assessment now to be done by the RADA personnel to say, okay, it doesn't make sense just fix a road in Paul Island. Rather, let us look at the main road leading into Paul Island.
No, one
No,
second.
I agree with you. Member is saying the same thing, you know.
I know. So
all I want to know is what is the policy. I just want the answer as to what is the actual policy now.
Member Vaz, can I suggest one of the difficulties that the permanent secretary may have from time to time is you're asking very specific policy questions. Let me just make a suggestion. What I'm picking up from all members of parliament is that they're comfortable with the list. They're comfortable with the fact that when I say that, meaning that they're comfortable with the fact that the parish council, that there should be an expansion of the roads that can be done. And if that is the case, then we can endorse the fact that that should be done. But I'm not certain where you're actually going with it, as they are on the list.
No, man, I have no problem with parish council roads being done under a farm road program, because we have suggested parish council roads before. But I've been told then and flatly denied that these are not farm roads, so they cannot be on the program. That's why I also want to know if this is a new policy decision where we're allowing this. I don't have a problem allowing it. You understand? I just want to know if that is where we're going. So in the future, for me, if I am suggesting something to RADA, I can be properly guided, knowing that yes, I know parish council roads can be fixed now, as long as it is extensively used by farmers. Because whatever road I have ever
approved by the
whatever road I have ever suggested through a farm road program, I have specifically had consultations with my RADA parish office. Are these farm roads? Can we submit these? And if they're not farm roads, I said no, you cannot submit this because it's not a farm road.
Remember the minister.
I have submitted, for example, I'm looking at this list, I have no problem with what is on the list. But I've submitted farm roads that from over 2 years now that still can't come on this list. But yet we have parish council roads on the list. That's why I want to know, where is first of all, what is the follow-up question really now is how do we select these roads?
Because secondly speaking, even looking at this listing now, my information is that this information was not submitted from the parish office. So even though yesterday I heard in the minister's presentation that the procedure is to whether a councillor, MP, or a farming group would suggest something, then rather would verify and make the recommendation. This is not the case with what I'm seeing here, because no recommendation was made by the parish office with regards to this. You understand? So that is why I asked, so the question I'm really asking, how do we go about selecting the roads? Because obviously it is not based on what was said in Parliament yesterday. Because this is not the procedure we have used to come up with what I'm seeing in front of me here. So I'm asking, what is the, specifically, I can't tell you about Westmoreland. So specifically, what is the procedure that was used to choose, to select these roads, since it was not recommended from the parish office? No, I already said I'm not. And there's an error too. Two of them are mine. One is actually in Western Westmoreland, so I don't want it to mislead that Central is getting 3 roads, because Grant Bush is actually in Western Westmoreland. No, it's in Liquorland. But, so it's really 2 I get here, right?
Yeah, man.
But the border is actually a big bridge here, right? Yeah. So what I'm saying is that to correct the member, I stated initially in your statements, I have no problem with the ones that are there. I'm saying that we have...
You had selected them?
No. What I'm saying is I've never had an issue. I've never had an issue with a road being fixed in my constituency.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter where the road is, I'm not going to have an issue with the road being fixed. All I'm asking for is what is the procedure to select them, because as I said, now I'm seeing 2 parish council roads that are going to be fixed. I have no issue with that, because I want it to be extended to parish council roads. But I've seen where over 2 years now we have been suggesting new farm roads that are on RADA's database as a farm road, that still cannot for some reason come on this listing. So I think Mr. Thompson, we have spoken of it before, and I'll talk to you after about it. But all I'm trying to find out then, so I can be properly guided moving forward, what are the procedures that we are using to select these roads? Because as I said, my information that I have is that based on what was said in Parliament yesterday, that was not the way how these roads were selected. So I want to know, how were these roads selected as the roads to be chosen?
All right, thank you, Mr. Vaz.
And I'm really speaking on behalf of a colleague, rural member of Parliament, North Trelawney, because I had the preliminary discussion with him in the Parliament yesterday when the list was circulated. And I think 2 of my other colleagues raised the question of, how do you arrive at these roads? Yes. What about the consultation, which is oftentimes my big complaint? And I will be blunt with this government, because as member of Parliament, many things are being pursued in my constituency that I have no clue about. No clue whatsoever. The courtesy that is usually extended to member of Parliament, many times I'm overlooked. And it's not once or twice. My colleague in North Trelawney, not the first time, true. The member of Parliament for North Trelawney, like my colleague from Central Westmoreland, he has no problem with roads being repaired in the road. But where you have limited resources, how do you establish the priority? For example, the road selected in his constituency. How many farmers are served by them relative to other roads with larger numbers of farmers? You can't elect somebody to represent you and that representative is overlooked. I heard the conversation made about farmers groups may make representation on their own behalf. Those groups are individuals, yes. What about those who the member of Parliament represent? It is the member of Parliament that represents the entire constituency. So even if groups make representation, and the truth be told, other agencies, even when they get representation from groups in the constituency, they come to you as MP. I know JSIF do that a lot too. We have these requests for roads, for projects in your constituency. What are your comments? Not that I dictate what happened, but they factor my comments because they want an overall picture from somebody who's responsible for the entire area. So I will say Specifically in the case of North Trelawney, on behalf of my colleague, I am saying that before you sign up on those roads and those funds, you ought to have consultation with him as a duly elected representative for all the farmers in the area and not just a few.
All right. All right, members, I think that there's a principle. Hold on, members. There's a principle that we need to follow. It has been in place for years. We are all members of parliament here. Sometimes you sit on this side, sometimes you sit on that side. But the fact of the matter is that we have to represent the people who elected us here. And in a lot of cases, when things are not done, it comes back to us. A person look at you and say, look at the road going to my farm and I can't take out my things. They quarrel with you. When you say, well, I make representation, I don't get it, it's because you're ineffective. So there are things in place that allow the members of parliament to have discussion with the agencies. And I think certainly in my discussions with the present minister, he has indicated to me that it is a procedure that he is following. I would like, and I think what we need to do, the point made by Mr. Jackson and the point made by Mr. Vaz are important, and I think it goes to everyone here. We're not going to get all the roads that we want. I mean, any of us can put a list of 10 roads tomorrow. So there's a process that rather has to go through to say, this is the funding I have and this is what I can do. That's a reasonable thing. But certainly, if a member of parliament and all of us in here, I know, don't just pick roads, you know, contrary to what people think politically or otherwise. We sit with our RAD officers, we go in, we have the determinations of what is best and most useful. So I think, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Spence, what I would like is for you to, in a reasonable way, because I don't think this has to be contentious, all of us know what is in front of us. It cannot be that as a member of parliament, sitting with my officers, I pick X and Y as the roads, and then A and B come back. It means that there's a breakdown, and not it's in the spirit and also in the systems. So what I would ask is that certainly, and I call Member Vaz, because quite frankly, on the other hand, if you do get roads that may be important roads to be fixed but not your priority, your problem is if you go and say, no, I want to change that road, that it becomes very embarrassing for you as a member of parliament to go and say, people will say, but why you know, they were fixing my road and you never did it. So that cannot be an alternative. But Member Vaz indicated that for 2 years he had indicated a road. It was a Red Gate to Cave. I think there's that discussion. Member Jackson, and Member Jackson just made reference to North Trelawney. And I would say to other members, please, what I would ask you to do, Mr. Spence, Mr. Thompson, have a discussion. We'll say to our colleagues where you have a real point. It's not something that we want to have that discussion here. As a committee, we deal with policy. What I'd ask is, could you just go, have that discussion? We'll sign off on this list pending the 2 or 3 cases where there seemed to be a problem, and ask you if you could look at it and resolve it with the members of parliament and yourselves, and see if moving forward we can come to an amicable situation. I don't think this is something that has to be very contentious. And I know that you have made changes and you're going on a different principle. So I think we can go from there. Yeah, you say my.
As indicated that there are 88 roads for the $752 million, but it appears to be 87 which appears on the list. Where is that one which is, can you say where it is?
Which one? You lost the road?
The list which has been passed to me, the one I have, says 87. So I'd just like to know if that particular one which is missing is one missing from Northeast St. Catherine.
Oh, yeah. All right. Mr. Spence, Member Campbell, I make a suggestion. There are 3 queries. What we will do is our recommendation that we are in agreement with.
No, Chairman, I am not in agreement.
Oh, sorry.
And I'll say why I'm not in agreement. Because I don't understand the policy clearly. This is not I had a situation last year where there were 3 roads which were named as belonging to Northeast St. Catherine. I pointed out the error. Those roads were in Northwest St. Catherine. I have no responsibility.
And with no boundary change.
And the Parliament has not approved that boundary change. So that has gone. But I have a difficulty. At this stage, we are in July of 2019. And I just want to find out, in terms of the disbursement for purposes of repairing these, where are we in terms of the budget? Because I see $752 million. How much of that $752 million?
No, that's for this year till the end of the end of this financial year in March.
My standing order says to me, Chairman, that I must inquire into where the implementation of the budget.
Oh no, but I'm just saying, having passed the budget 2 months ago.
Not 2 months, sir.
3 months.
4 months.
No, well, I'm just saying.
That's
what they have
1/3
done,
of the time that within which to spend it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying they brought the list now.
The
The
list would have predated the appearance before this committee. So I want to know, 4 months having elapsed, and I just want to know now, where in 1/3 of the time, because when the people in Geisel, whom I represent, and we're having a hell of a time with water and the bad potatoes and all the other things.
And the road.
And the road. So, I really want to know.
So your question is, when do they anticipate this program to start
Not when
and
it's
finish?
anticipated. I want to know how much of the $752 million has been, because
spent.
Yes, we have done some procurement. We have gone through the whole process. Where are we?
So hold on. Your road, I'm just trying to understand. The road you're talking about is.
They walked over to Northwest. They walked over to Northwest. Those
No.
from last year.
I'm just talking though. The roads you're talking about, you're inquiring about roads that are on this list
yes,
here.
Where are we in terms, which of the roads which are named on here? Yes, where are we? 1/3 of the time has gone.
No, the question is, have you started work on this program? And if so, how far have you reached in it?
What? Yeah, the list has just been approved, and we are in the field doing a lot of scoping, BQs and all of these things. So in short orders, we'll be rolling out.
And how long do you think it will take to complete the majority? When do you expect to finish this program before the end of the financial year?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Thompson, let me ask you. Once you've done the scoping, and what is the process that you're going to employ to determine who the contractor or contractors are?
Well, we have a pool of contractors, and we would.
What process are you going to use? Because I listened to a particular gentleman out of another agency, which says it takes between 9 and 15 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally had that experience, and I think it's a shame and an utter disgrace for an allocation is made, because I have no reason to believe that these funds are not been allocated, and why it should take us between 9 and 15 months to get a little road project going. What is it is causing you to have these delays? Because I'd want to know, to be able to, from this point, make a recommendation to our Parliament that the process be adjusted so that we can better explain to our constituents, explain to the people out there why it is that we have gone 1/3 year. And I'm sure at the beginning of the year that we knew that we were getting $752 million. What is it that we did between that time and now so that we could put us into the space where we can say to the people who are depending on us that this thing is likely to fly in August of 2019. I am not comfortable. I have not been the beneficiary of such information, and it makes me very uncomfortable. When I go out there, I look like a dumbass, because when I'm asked the question, oh yes, you tell us that there are 2 roads. One is going to come up in the hills of Mount Industry, and another one is going to come in Riversdale. But that's not how you can come here and say. I can never say with any specificity that it is based on what the state machinery has in place that I can deliver this by the end of September. I don't know. That is my true position, and it makes me, to say the least, very uncomfortable. Because if I'm representing persons out there, I must be able to say, because I know the state has put in place $752 million. And you knew at the beginning of April that you were going to spend $752 million on farm roads. My question, I really want to know, what did you put in place starting the 1st of April so that we would be in a better position than we are now? Because I hear scoping. This is taking place. Scoping. Do you have the technical people in place to do the scoping? And when is the scoping likely to be completed? So we're going to go to tender. We're going to send out all of these. And it goes through another elaborate process. And can you give us any indication as to when all of that will be complete, so we can say, yes, the contract's been awarded to Mr. X, and he has 8 weeks within which to complete. You know, that is the kind of information that would assist me.
All right. Mr. Thompson, you're going to answer now, but members, 126, I know that member has had a brief question as well, but I want to tell you it's my intention to finish at 1:30 because we do they have to prepare for the next committee meeting at 2 o'clock. So, Mr. Thompson, if you can just be brief in the response. And
yes, Mr. Campbell, I have listened attentively to your utterances. Let me tell you something. We have to be doing a lot of verification exercises out there, back and forthing, to verify that the roads meet the criteria of a farm road. As I just want to address
Member Vaz,
and then come to you. We have not adopted a policy to to say that we are doing parish council roads or NWA roads. But what has been happening in recent times, we recognize that we do it on a case-by-case basis where we see the genuine need of an NWA road leading into a genuine farming community. And as you said, fixing an off-road without addressing issues relating to the road leading into that community makes no economic sense. So on a case-by-case basis, we look at it and we see where it's important that we address this. Until a policy is adopted, then we still maintain the principle that farm road is classified and done in that order. In terms of Mr. Campbell's utterances, yes, we have seen the need to expedite the process, and I believe that we are going to complete the roads before the end of the financial year. There are challenges, though, that we have in terms of continuous verification, going back and forth in the field. And I just want to maintain that if a member of parliament submitted a road, we have to reroute it back to the parish to ensure that due diligence is done to give that level of authenticity to what we are doing. So,
You have to verify what member of parliament submits to you.
yes, yeah. So we have to reroute it back to the community and to have our team, verify, because you get roads, all sorts of different roads come in, and we have to be mindful that there are agencies who are also looking at what we are doing, right? Yeah. And so we have to do a lot of paperwork behind the scenes to ensure that we are compliant with what we do. But notwithstanding the timelines, but we are going to liquidate the funding before the end of financial year. We have done it before, and the quality still maintains.
All right, members, 1:30. Member I don't. It's very, but we're on the. All right. The one thing I would say, members, is that in doing the report on this, I believe there's a consensus amongst the members of parliament that the direction, the sort of, I wouldn't say, I don't use the term policy shift, but certainly the decision of the ministry, and rather to look at roads that are important roads to the farming community in a broader sense, as long as verification is done, that we as a committee agree with the approach. Am I correct? Is there anyone that disagrees with it in the committee? If so, I think it is just important for us to indicate to Parliament that we feel you are on the right approach, because I do know you also come under pressure from other oversight bodies. So at least certainly if the Parliament moves in the direction, it follows. And I would ask you, there were 3 cases, I think, that were highlighted. If you could look at them and whatever adjustments can be made, certainly just let us know, just for the record. I'm not indicating that you'll come back, but just that it is resolved and dealt with. All right, members, there's an issue. The Ministry of Labor, which was supposed to come today, permanent secretary is traveling next week. They won't be able to make it. We do know that Parliament will be going on the summer recess. I'm not certain when, because we do have Parliament next week with the state of emergencies. Huh? The 23rd? So we can safely say that we probably will have 2 more sittings. Who was supposed to come is the Ministry of Local Government that had been put on standby. They have the departments that fall apart from the ministry is the Board of Supervision, the Fire Brigade, the KSAC, the other municipal councils, including Portmore, the Solid Waste Management, the ODPEM, Parish Development Committees, the SDC, and the Vineyard Town All-Age Home. My suggestion, members, is that for next week, that we invite the ministry itself, the KSAC, the municipal councils. I would say that if we, that's a lot. If we stop there, is that too much, or is that sounds too much? All right. So, can I have a recommendation? Should we take the ministry? I do believe the fire brigade is always important, also, but we have the ministry, the KSAC, Portmore. Are there any others? Should we invite a number of municipal councils, or? All right, Manchester, Hanover. No, but I have no difficulties. I think we'll do those and maybe pick 2 or 3 others and bring them in so that we can get a sort of overview. And KSAC and Portmore. Okay? All right, so that will be for our next meeting, and then we can determine the following meeting. All right, members, with that, meeting is now adjourned. Thank you to the ministry and RADA for attending.
Just to say, Mr. Chair, we also wish to thank you for your time and appreciate the recommendations made, and we'll seek to take them on board. We apologize for the matter of this lack of adequate dialogue. We have to take it as express, and so we'll seek to improve on that.
I think that's I think out of these meetings, that's what we want. Just a sort of how we move forward is important. So thank you and thanks for attending. Meeting adjourned.